This is the social aspects of the West. People coming to the West tended to settle down in communities with other people from similar areas. For example, people from New England would settle with other New Englanders. This led to many close-knit communities in the West. These close-knit communities engaged in social events such as hoedowns, where they would do dances and compete in different events. Some people, mountain men such as Jacob Astor, pushed even farther west than these towns. These people engaged in fur trading, mainly with the Indians. Alright, this is the Western economy. So most of the land of the West was controlled by the federal government. At first, the federal government had strict regulations on how much land could be bought. You had to buy 640 acres. This meant that many small farmers couldn't afford to purchase these large tracts of land. So wealthy speculators would get loans from banks and then buy huge amounts of land, then resell them in smaller amounts to these small farmers. This led to the farmers owing these speculators money for the land. The speculators in turn owned the bank's land. Because of the farmers' debt, they were forced to grow cash crops like cotton to pay off the debts. This led to cotton being the main crop in the Southwest, while wheat and corn, other cash crops, were the main crops in the North. This is banks. Westerners weren't very fond of the banks. This was mainly to the banks being one of the cornerstones of the speculators and thus depriving the farmers of being able to buy the land cheaply. Because of the speculators owing the money to the banks and the farmers owing money to the speculators, when the banks collapsed in 1819, this led to, in the Panic of 1819, the prices of crops dropped and the prices of land dropped. The West didn't really care about tariffs because they exported most of their crops to areas like Europe, and thus tariffs didn't help them or hurt them. Finally, the power of the federal government. The federal government the federal government was one of the biggest forces in pushing people to go to the West. The federal government did things such as the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which gave the federal government power to remove Indians from their land and led to such tragedies as the Trail of Tears. Thus, the Westerners weren't overly fond of the federal government, but the federal government helped them spread west and protected their liberties.